Top 5, a show where we count things down from number 5 to number 1. This week, Top 5 movie posters. Yeah, you thought we were going to do another Top 5 movies of some era or something, but this week, someone wrote in and said, hey, can you guys do Top 5 movie posters? And I thought, well, this is going to be kind of rather odd until I started looking up some movie posters of some of my favorite movies. And I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of them that I really love. And if anyone has ever been to my house, I know, Rodrigo, you have been to my downstairs. My downstairs, the walls are lined with some of my favorite movie posters. Mm-hmm. And I have a closet where I have probably another 50 or 60 more posters that are in storage.
That's crazy.
And these are like actual movie posters, direct from the movie theater, double-sided kind of stuff.
Are you going to rotate them out?
I did. I actually rotated 3 of them out. I took down a Toy Story poster and replaced it with, and took down another poster. 2 of the replacements are on my top 5 this week. So why don't we get to our top 5 movie posters? And I'm going to start things off with my number 5, 76's Star Wars. The one where,
Was it 76 or 77?
76, 77, whatever year. I'm sure they had a poster out before the movie came out.
The poster came out in 76.
The poster came out in 1968. But what I really like about this is they intentionally went in and are trying to mimic some of the styles of the pulp comic books, the pulp books of the time. There's definitely an influence of the Frank Frazetta art in this. And of course, it looks really good. And it feels very similar to Frazetta's, I think it's the Conan one where Conan is standing there with the axe, where the sword above his head and the girls are clinging on to his body. You kind of see it mimicked in National Lampoon's Vacation. Mm-hmm. But when you see Luke Skywalker standing there and you see Leia down at his legs and you see, the Darth Vader in the background with the Death Star and everything, that is a really cool poster. Now, that is one that I don't own, mainly because the only ones you can find are the replica posters.
Right.
And any of the ones that are of good quality of the Star Wars posters are like in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. But my number 5 is the original Star Wars movie poster that many of us saw in that summer of 77 or the May of 77.
Whenever it was.
It was in that time period. It's a really interesting story. There's actually a new podcast where someone has gone in and kind of given their take on how Star Wars was created. It's very well produced. It's very nice. But I've always dug that Star Wars poster. My friend Tim, when we were growing up, he had that poster in his bedroom. And it was one from the movie theater because his mom worked for the newspaper. And so they would get the art from the movie theater so that they could run the ads in the newspaper. And then because she was chummy with him, she's like, oh, my son would love that Star Wars poster. So he had a Star Wars poster hanging up in his bedroom for years and years and years and years. I don't know what happened to it. I'm sure it got torn down and thrown in the trash.
Have you ever seen the Marvel Comics version that's done by Dave Cockrum?
I don't think is that the cover to issue 1?
No, it's the
with
cover
the green
to
Darth Vader?
Marvel Special Edition number 1. The green Darth Vader is actually a completely different layout, but Cockrum did a take on the poster, the actual layout of the poster, but instead of Leia clinging to his leg, she's in front of him looking action hero with a gun.
Yes, I have definitely seen this one, yes.
Yeah, the Marvel Special Edition number 1 is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Because Cockrum is like, no, man, Princess Leia is not going to hang on to his leg. She's going to fight.
Especially when you find out that that's her brother she's hanging on to. Weird.
Oh, like you've never touched your sister's leg.
Well, she hasn't held on to me like that, so. Anyway, that is my number 5, Star Wars, the Star Wars poster. That one is maybe a given for a lot of people, maybe not. Rodrigo, what do you have for number 5?
My number 5 is important because it's the first of what is really a trend on this list, which is what I consider to be a good poster for a movie that I really didn't like. So the first time I encountered this poster was actually at a movie theater. I was walking to another movie, no idea what it was, and I saw it, and I couldn't tell what I was looking at because there was kind of this metallic spiral, and I was like, what is this? And of course, all it had was just a date and a little bit of text, which was not the name of the movie. And it wasn't until I kind of started looking at the corners that I realized that it was like a gorilla man wearing a helmet. So my number 5 is the kind of teaser poster for the 2001 Planet of the Apes, like the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Which, again, not a movie that I liked, but I remember seeing this poster being like, what is it? And kind of going on a journey with it and being like, oh, it's a new Planet of the Apes. That's a terrible idea. And it just really stuck with me. When the pneumatic tube went off and I saw the top 5 for this week, that was literally the first poster that came to my mind, as far as like movie posters that I immediately remember. For some reason, this one really stuck with me.
What's an ape with a nautilus on his head? How can you not love that?
There's a lot, a big part of it is just the composition, right? It's like the character's face is down at the bottom corner. There's like a literal like golden spiral in it. It like this poster leads your eye to the entirety of the poster before it tells you kind of when the movie's coming out. Or what the movie is.
Yeah, unfortunately, that movie stayed in our movie theater here in Hayes for the entire summer. I mean, literally, whatever the release date of that thing was, when school resumed in August and into September, it was still playing at our theater.
Yeah,
that was when I realized that we had no culture or class in Hayes.
That was when you realized it?
Yep. I'd been away for 10 years. Came back and was just like, oh my God,
forgot.
This place. And they also had Look Who's Talking 2 was, I think, the double feature that ran with that thing for a couple of months.
Look Who's Talking also.
Is that the one with 2 babies? Or is that the one with the dog?
That's the one with 2 babies.
Oh, okay.
The one with the dog is Look Who's Talking Now, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Honey, look who I shrunk now.
Yes. Matthew, what do you have for your number 5?
My number 5 is actually rife with something that I love, but that I very rarely talk about on the Major Spoilers podcast. And that is the old adult material. Now, that's not to say that it's an adult film or anything creepy like that. I understand that Top 5 is still a family program, but there's some of the old SCX, and there's a definite sort of innuendo to it. And it's a beautiful poster, even though the actual image only takes up like a quarter of the poster. Now, there's more than one version of this. So there's one out there that's hideous, but the one that I'm talking about is for The Graduate, which I believe is from 1968, if I'm not mistaken. And it's got a whole lot of text
Robinson's
on it.
leg and everything.
Yeah, it's just Anne Bancroft's leg and Dustin Hoffman looking at it like a cow looking at an oncoming train. And she's pulling up her stocking. It's, the iconic movie moment of The Graduate. It's really the only thing that a lot of people remember about The Graduate. Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me. And you don't realize that at the end of that film, it's just filled with this existential terror and they've made a terrible mistake. But it's really beautiful because the whole thing is centered on this small picture of her leg. And to the right of him looking into deep space and being like, oh my God, it just says, this is Benjamin. He's a little worried about his future. And I love the amount of story potential that's packed into that image, juxtaposed with that thing. And then, of course, a bunch of names. I miss the days when they'd put all the names on the poster and it wasn't just like a photoshopped beauty shot. But that's just me complaining and being old. But if you ever do get a chance to see The Graduate, I do recommend it. It's old school and it feels a little slow, but the poster is gorgeous. And that's why it made my list, even though it only made number 5.
Well, that's an interesting one. The one that I'm thinking of is kind of like, I think it's green. There were a couple of posters of this. The one that I'm thinking of is basically they took the black and white shot and then they turned all the white parts green and the black parts stayed black. And so you get this really weird kind of looking, what you would expect of the 1960s era type movie posters. But I know that there were a couple of them. And that brings us to my number 4, which also has a couple of posters. And that's one of the interesting things about more modern, I don't know when they started doing this. I know it was at least in the 80s, where you would have multiple posters for multiple versions of the film. Maybe it would be, here's the teaser poster for when this movie is about to come out. And then 2 weeks before, you would have the official movie poster up in the theater. And then if the movie was re-released, they'd have a different version of the movie poster. And then, of course, you've got international posters and those kinds of things. If you look up Spider-Man Homecoming on the internet, especially the Wikipedia page for Spider-Man Homecoming, you will see the Tommy Lee Edwards poster for this film. And I got to tell you, fans, that poster is an abomination. It is an abomination of, and I think when this poster came out, even hack Photoshop artists were like, what the F is this? So when I'm talking about the Spider-Man Homecoming poster, I'm not talking about the Tommy Lee Edwards poster. I'm talking about the other one that is, still Photoshop, but much, 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 much better. I think the studios got wind of this. I think this one is called the A poster, but it's the one where Peter Parker is dressed up in his Spider-Man suit and he's wearing his yellow trivia team jacket, and he's reclining on the edge of a building, and he's looking, you see New York City in the background with the Avengers Tower and everything. And I really dig that poster. And yes, you can tell that it is nice. That it is photoshopped from the scene in the movie where he's trapped in the vault. But still, that poster is 100 times better and says more about what Spider-Man Homecoming is about than anything else. For years, I had the original Toy Story poster hanging up in my downstairs area. That one was taken down and replaced recently with the Spider-Man Homecoming poster because I love that poster so much. So my number 4 is the Spider-Man Homecoming poster, the one where Peter Parker is in his Spider-Man suit, listening to his headphones with New York City and the Avengers Tower in the background. That is my number 4. Rodrigo, what do you have for number 4?
My number 4,
yes,
is another poster for a movie that I don't think is particularly good, but I really like the poster. And part of the reason why I really like the poster, I guess it's maybe a bit of a cheat, is because there's actually kind of 2 posters. And this is the poster for the movie Double Team. Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dennis Rodman, somebody else, presumably. In this movie, Jean-Claude Van Damme plays a Jean-Claude Van Damme type character, and Dennis Rodman is also a fighty guy, I guess. But what I really liked about these posters is that there's one poster where up front is Dennis Rodman being like, and like he's gonna punch you in the face, and behind him, Jean-Claude Van Damme's got a gun, and he's like, look at my gun. And then if you looked at a different poster, Jean-Claude Van Damme is up front and he's like, look at my gun. And then back there, Dennis Rodman's like, you better look at his gun or I punch you. It's the exact same image, just in some of the posters, Rodman is up front, Van Damme is in the back. In some of the other ones, that's reversed. And the best part about it is that if you ever picked up some of the editions, I think the DVD did this, instead of having information, like at the front, there's a cover and then you flip it around and it's like mild-mannered police officer Jake, Jean-Claude Van Damme, gets involved. It's like none of that. It's like literally just both versions. So you can just take it and like flip it back and forth. And it's just like, it has, instead of having any information, it just has 2 covers. One of them Rodman's up front, one of them Van Damme's up front. So the way that a lot of posters get done is they have a photo shoot or multiple photo shoots, and they shoot each character or each actor individually, right? If you see any poster that's a group shot, chances are that was not actually taken with them as a group. They were all shot individually and then arranged in lots of different ways so that the graphic designer has options. This is like a very blatant example of that, but it's one that I think really kind of sold it for me. This was a moment in time in which both Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dennis Rodman were huge superstars. So it also seems like a really good compromise to be like, sometimes one of you is going to be in front, sometimes the other one's going to be in front. And if like people are in the theater and they see both posters and they close one eye and then they switch the eyes that they have closed, it'll be like you're flipping back and forth, man, or like something. I don't know. So
1997 was such a weird year.
It really was. It's like nowadays, Dennis Rodman is hanging out with a Korean dictator, and Jean-Claude Van Damme is actually still making shows. He's got an Amazon show now, so good for him. All these years later. Anyway, the poster for Double Team, good times.
Yep. Matthew, what do you have for your number 4 poster?
My number 4 is here for a number of reasons. One, it is a movie that I really, really enjoy. First time I saw it, it gave me just the screaming heebies. And it was really creepy and really effective in a way that, a lot of the movies from the director Alfred Hitchcock are. But it's also on the list because I feel when you talk movie posters, you have to talk about the master of the movie poster, Saul Bass.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, there's a lot of posters that I love, but which one actually goes with a movie that I'm into? And the one that just popped into my head immediately is this weird, esoteric, spirally thing. And in the middle, you see a man sort of falling, or maybe not falling. It's hard to tell. And there may be a woman, and there may be a giant pile of blood, or it may be a giant crab. It's really, really very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Abstract. That's a good word. Mm-hmm. And it's gorgeous. It's the poster for Vertigo, 1956 Vertigo. And if you look at it long enough, it starts to spin like one of those really cool, visual effects things that you go and you buy at the Spencer's Gifts or the Hot Topic down by the B. Dalton in the mall where Steven exists and no one else does. But
I know I got the whole place to myself and everything's on sale.
Right. What's really fascinating about it is if you look at it long enough, you realize that maybe blood splatter is actually the center of an eye, and that the swirls around it look like the rest of the eye. And then if you look at it a little longer, you're kind of like, well, is he falling or is he pushing somebody? Is there actually another person there? It's something you can just sit and stare at for hours and hours. And of course, it has the really, really cool kind of broken glass font on all of the lettering to it. I really, really love this poster. If I were a person like Steven who hung cool posters on the walls, this is one that I would pick.
Yeah, or
I'd
you
put
could
it
just
in my
get
bathroom.
You could get a spirograph set and make it yourself.
I have a spirograph, actually. It's with my Simon in the bottom of a box.
Well, see, then you're halfway there to making that poster a reality, Matthew.
Yeah, it's going to be my version. But instead of Vertigo, I'm going to call it, I don't know, a lumbago. There you go.
Yeah, and instead of a man bent over like he's pushing a woman, it's going to be a man bent back the other way, grabbing his back.
Oh, my back.
My back. Oh, I'm old. Old to go.
Hey, you had me up till the old part. Don't call me old. I'm vintage.
We are moving into our number 3 slot, and my number 3 slot, again, if you had ever been to my downstairs area, the first thing that you would see at the bottom of the stairs, let me quiz Rodrigo. Do you remember the poster that's at the bottom of the stairs when you came to my house, Rodrigo?
Sweet Home Alabama.
No, that was around the corner, and it was only up because my wife insisted that if I was going to put up all my posters, she got to put up one of her posters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No, at the very bottom of the stairs was the poster for the very first Spider-Man movie.
Oh, yeah.
That one is no longer hanging up. It has been replaced. It has been replaced with another Spider-Man poster. This one, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And again, it's not the A poster or the B poster. I think this one is the international poster, but this is the upside down falling poster where, you see New York City upside down and you see Miles, looks like he's reaching up to touch the skyline, but really he's falling and the entire image is upside down. That to me is a fantastic poster because it tells you so much about what this movie is about. First of all, you see somebody who is wearing a kind of Spider-Man costume, but you don't really know why it doesn't look like a Spider-Man costume. And then you realize that he's also wearing like sneakers and street clothes and shorts and a jersey. And you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense. And then you go, oh, He's reaching toward an upside down New York. Oh, this whole world is topsy-turvy. Everything I knew about Spider-Man is now all wrong. Now, again, this is a shot, not really a shot from the film, but inspired from a shot in the film. But that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse poster, I love that. When the poster started to become available, that is the one that I tracked down. And I actually ended up with a couple of different versions of it because they also have some that are like the 18 by 24 inch posters, like you buy at Walmart. Mm. And I ended up getting the wrong one. So my son has that hanging in his room. But, you've got to get the full size movie theater posters if you want them to all look right in your big basement, where literally all along the walls, poster after poster after poster, broken up only sometimes by bookshelves and a large TV. So there you go. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That is my number 3 movie poster. Just looks so good and for such a fantastic movie in itself. Love that one. It is my number 3. Rodrigo, what do you have for number 3?
My number 3 is the poster for It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Mm-hmm. Not the Saul Bass poster, but the Jack Davis poster.
I love that one.
Yep. And really the reason for that is that I really wanted to include a Jack Davis poster in this list because I think that almost any of them would have been reasonable to have on here. They're really kind of emblematic of a point in American cinematic history. Mm-hmm. To the point where nowadays it's like I feel like you couldn't bring that trend back without it being like clearly hearkening back to it. If you guys ever saw the poster for Detroit Rock City, mm-hmm. They were basically doing kind of a Jack Davis riff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this poster has almost pretty much every character in the movie as a caricature. They're falling off of the world and they're reaching for a suitcase full of money. And it's just, you just see this and you think this is like absolute hijinks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And like everybody is in there, right? I mean, if the Three Stooges are in this poster.
Yeah.
And they have like 1 10-second shot in the entire film.
Yeah.
But it's like if Hieronymus Bosch did cartoons for Mad. That's what's so beautiful about this poster.
Wasn't Jack Davis a cartoonist for Mad?
He was one of the original Mad
Okay,
guys.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so again, there's lots of action in it. I think there's actually multiple Jack Davis versions. So pick the one you like. Back in the day, they used to have these like
lobby
wide
cards. Yeah, those are the lobby card ones.
Yeah. So there's actually the one I'm thinking of is where you see the globe and all the characters are kind of spread out over it.
Yeah, the vertical one.
But the one where it's like a big old long chase scene, that one's cool too.
Mm-hmm.
Bad News Bears, man. It's good stuff.
That's what I was thinking. Either Bad News Bears or the Woody Allen movie where he's not Fidel Castro. Yes, where he's not Fidel Castro. That's another one where you're just like, that man was a genius. Jack Davis could caricature anyone.
Yep. All right, Matthew, what do you have for your number 3?
Well, it ain't Jack Davis, I'll tell you that for free. But it is 3 things. It is incredibly striking. It's beautiful. It's very retro. And since this is a retro film, it fits the tone of what we're seeing. The film came out in 1991, was set in like 1938. And it has kind of that Art Deco, old school kind of look to it. And it is completely useless as a movie poster. And some people actually credit it for the movie not doing as well as they thought it was going to. It's the movie poster, the first poster for The Rocketeer, where you just
that's a beautiful
see Cliff.
poster.
Yeah, Cliff just flying up, and all it says is Rocketeer across the top.
I do have that one.
Yeah, that one's really beautiful. And people are like, well, how do you know from that what the movie's about? And I'm like, I don't know, Gomer, but I'll tell you this, it's a gorgeous poster. But I've actually, when I was doing the research for this, they're like, people felt that the poster was so abstract that it actually made the film suffer because no one knew what it was about. I don't care, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful poster. It's one of the images, the quintessential Rocketeer images. There's Cliff standing with a flag and the lights pointed at him. There's half-naked Jenny and the photographer screaming, "Wow!" There's a lot of moments in the Rocketeer comics and movie and whatever else have you. I don't know what else is in there, but that's one of the ones that sticks with me. And it's really a gorgeous poster. It's a gorgeous poster for an underrated movie. I think you should go watch The Rocketeer.
Yeah, it is really good. I think, if I'm not mistaken, was it the last film that Horn scored? No, surely not.
I don't know.
I can't remember. It's a really good film.
Yes,
Unfortunately,
it's got Alan Arkin in it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Disney didn't know how to market this brilliant product that's IP that they had.
Yeah,
and then they made the movie, and then they're like, "Oh, we can't do anything with this. Let's get rid of the rights as quickly as we can." And yeah,
how can you not? I mean, seriously. And the thing that's really great about it, and we're getting off topic for the poster, but the thing that's really great about it is that entire movie, nearly every single person who steps on screen is hey, it's that guy. Because there's the villain from Lost, and there's the creepy bald guy that the crow kills, and there's one of the Larry, Daryl, and Daryl's, and there's Ron Howard's little brother. Everybody in it, you're just like, I know that guy from something else, and it's half the fun of watching the movie once you've seen it 6 or 7 times.
Yes. Besides that, it's a grand adventure. I think that
it is a grand adventure.
I think Disney is working on a new version of the Rocketeer, but I haven't heard anything about this for a couple of years now. They're supposed to change it up, and it's supposed to be a young girl is the Rocketeer in the reboot.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Neville
All right.
Sinclair's daughter comes back. See?
That is that is our number 3s. Now we're up to our number 2s. And if you're going to talk movie posters, yes, Saul Bass is definitely a name that you want to have on a list somewhere. But I think Drew Struzan is also another name that you want to have on your list. And I do have this. If you guys watch Munchkinland, you see this poster in the background of all of our video episodes, Back to the Future, where he takes the most iconic objects from the film, Marty's clothes, the DeLorean, the flaming tire tracks, the watch that he's looking at, and then combines it into this really cool image. And it is something that you can stare at and notice little details every once in a while. I'll be sitting there playing a game of Munchkinland, and I'll look over the Brad shoulder or Brian shoulder or whoever is on the show that week and just marvel at that poster and how well it was put together, unlike that Tommy Lee Edwards Spider-Man Homecoming poster. This one is actually really good. Unfortunately, I mean, this is not Struzan's fault, I don't think. But, when you did 2 and 3, they basically said, hey, you know how great that first poster was? Do it again, but this time let's add some additional characters into the shot. And it kind of ruined the overall aesthetic. So that's why Back to the Future is not my number 1 movie poster, but it is my number 2 movie poster. Rodrigo, what do you have for number 2?
I think the one for 2 actually works. It's the 3 where it falls apart for me.
I don't like it as much because it's just like, oh yeah, we've seen this before. Why are you just adding in, you're changing up the DeLorean and adding a little bit, one more person. It just doesn't work as good for me. The original is the best. Rodrigo, what do you have for number 2?
My number 2 is a poster that has always stuck with me, especially because it got me really hyped to see the movie. And then when I saw the movie, I was kind of disappointed. Again, a pattern. And I think a big part of it was the poster, that I saw the poster for this movie and I was like, this movie is going to be amazeballs, and it was normal balls. And that is the poster for the Robin Williams movie, What Dreams May Come. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, What Dreams May Come.
Yes, this is the tree poster, right?
This is so yeah, it's like the premise is that he dies and then it's all about the afterlife and sort of his afterlife and a journey that he has to undergo after he is dead. Um, and so no, so this poster is him walking. There's a little Dalmatian by him, and there's it's all golden behind him, and there's kind of this like fantastical city behind him. He's walking on water, and it's just all kind of rosy and golden and crepuscular, and it's all like very soft focus except for him, and he is very small in the frame. Again, when you look at what does the poster tell you, how does this poster makes you feel, it's like this is a movie about a journey. He is very small compared to the background, compared to the setting. It makes you feel he doesn't have a lot of power. He's kind of going on this journey. I want to know what this dog is about. And when I actually saw it, I was like, well, this wasn't terrible, but I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but this poster made me expect more.
It does not live up to the poster.
It kind of doesn't. And there's a few movies kicking around like that.
Isn't that the point of a poster? Isn't that the point of a movie poster? Is to get you excited and hyped about what you're about to see, even if the movie is horrible?
Sure.
There
in an ideal world, though, the poster won't be like the best part.
I mean, I think,
in fact, going back to Tommy Lee Edwards, there's a quote that I found from him in regards to his Spider-Man Homecoming poster. If people really don't care about the poster and they're going to see the film anyway, what's the harm in doing a really amazing work of art that theaters will hang up proudly in their cinemas, that fans will buy and hang on their walls? It's a whole other market to have. So he's actually saying, hey, movie poster art is its own thing, especially if you can sell the stuff, if you can get people interested in the art side of it, regardless of how good or bad the movie may be. So, go ahead.
Oh, I think the only time that it's really an issue, it's like if the poster makes the movie seem awesome and the movie is not awesome, then yeah, that's definitely like that's a bonus for the poster artist, right? The issue is that sometimes, and I'm not saying that's the case with What Dreams May Come, sometimes the posters do mischaracterize the movie, and that is true for a lot of movie advertisement in general. That sometimes they're like, we have this movie, we don't know how to sell it, so we are going to lead people to believe that this is a different movie. Like, for example, this movie is a musical, but we're not going to put any musical numbers in the trailers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or this movie is not an action movie, but it stars an action guy, so we're going to make a very like action oriented poster where like they're like driving or like jumping out of something, and it's like the one time that it ever happens in the movie. So I would actually say that Star Wars poster that you mentioned, Stephen, kind of fits into that a little bit.
Oh, like, yeah. Oh,
that is not who Luke Skywalker is.
No. And the thing is, the studio didn't know how to sell this movie. We were, when Star Wars came out, we were at a time in not only in the nation, but, the theatrically where people were looking at raw stories, Taxi Drivers, your Deer Hunters, your Apocalypse Nows, those kind of films were kind of what Hollywood expected everyone to have. And so when George Lucas finally convinced, now I forget his name over at Fox, to go ahead and fund the Star Wars, and then they saw what was going on with this film, they're like, we don't know how to sell a fantasy film. We're not even sure audiences want a fantasy film. And they were scrambling left and right to just try to figure out, how do we sell this thing? So if you can pump this up and make it look like a Conan cover, then, or Frazetta, painting on the side of a van, right, then yeah, maybe you could get people to buy it. So yeah, I agree with you on that it is somewhat misleading in a number of ways, but it's also still great composition and great everything that goes on in that piece. So, What Dreams May Come, your number 2, Rodrigo.
2.
Yes. Matthew, what do you have for your number 2?
Now, this is an important rule, because it's not a hard and fast rule, and I certainly don't do it every time, but sometimes on certain top 5s, it comes to a point where I'm like, Steven's definitely going to have that. And I'm going to let Steven have that, or I'm going to let Rodrigo have that, because I think it's more their Bailiwick. It's something that I feel like you or he, hi Rodrigo, could talk about in a way that is more meaningful, which is why Back to the Future, which I love, is not on my list. However, my number 2 is one that I know Steven loves, because when he talks about his posters on the wall, this is one of them. This is one that is, to my memory, and I haven't been in Steven's house in a couple of years, very prominently placed. And it is a gorgeous movie, and it features one of the greatest character actors of the 1950s and 1960s in one of his strongest roles. And you know how you'll do that thing where it's like, oh, yeah, Tom Hanks lost 200 pounds to do this movie. And you'd be like, oh, yeah, Christian Bale put on 65 pounds. Well, my favorite actor, ladies and gentlemen, put on a different head. His name is Robbie, and he's a robot.
Oh yeah, I don't have that poster anymore. It was on the shelf on the ledge as you go downstairs to the basement.
Yep.
But then the cat came through one night when we were recording Munchkinland and decided that he wanted to walk behind all the posters on that ledge, all the framed posters, and it came crashing down the stairs and damaged the poster so much I had to throw the poster away.
Oh, the poster in question, my friends. My number 2 poster, Forbidden Planet. First of all, it's a great movie. Robbie's wonderful in it. Like I said, got a different head. Anne Francis is in it. If you don't know who Anne Francis is, remember the Twilight Zone where the girl found out she was a mannequin? That's Anne Francis. And then you're like, oh my God, I know Anne Francis.
There's people Leslie that are like, Nielsen, oh my God, I have no idea what a Twilight Zone is.
Right. Shut up. Everybody knows what a Twilight Zone is. Leslie Nielsen, the guy who grew up and became funny in Airplane and The Naked Gun, he's in this and he's playing a straightforward hero. But just the poster is this lurid 50s sci-fi masterpiece where Robbie is carrying someone who is reputedly Anne Francis. He's got her in his arms and he's got this evil face under his dome. And you're just like, oh my God, is he going to kill that girl? Is he going to eat her? And behind him is this weird comic book just landscape. It looks like a comic. It looks like a Forbidden Tales or a Planet Comics with, Saturn. There's 4 Saturns in the background, so it's the future. It's space. There's a space building with like a spire on it and some rocks, and it's just But the best part about it is you look at Robbie the robot, and Robbie, part of the reason Robbie is one of my idols is that he's kind of weirdly proportioned and bulbous, as am I. But if you look at this, you would not look and see a weirdly proportioned bulbous robot. You see a terrifying monster with, what looks to be fangs and really, really evil eyes boring into your soul. If you have not seen Forbidden Planet, go ahead and Google it right now, and it will come up and it will scare you. It'll scare the cat, and he'll run down the stairs, knock the poster to its doom. And that's why it's my number 2.
That is a great movie, not only for being an early sci-fi movie, but also because it gets really deep. It goes into the monsters of the id. If you've never heard that before, the Krill. If you've ever seen, Malcolm in the Middle, and they talk about the Krill boys, I'm pretty sure they're talking about the Krill from Forbidden Planet. So it is a good movie. It gets really deep and weird in places. It's got a great painted monster that shows up in the last half of the film. It's also Prospero.
Of,
the Tempest.
Shakespeare's The Tempest.
Yeah.
With Walter Pidgeon. You remember Walter Pidgeon? He was in a lot of those movies, and he talks like this.
Yeah.
I love him.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie. Definitely worth checking out. Okay, I think we have made it to our number ones, the top of our lists. And again, if you're going to include Drew Struzan in your list, you probably are also going to have one Richard Amsel in your list somewhere, hopefully. He's another one that, so Jack Davis does a lot of the caricature stuff, right? Richard Amsel does stuff that looks just like, oh my God, this is a real person that posed for this, and you've done some kind of funky Photoshop filter to it. Nope, this is all just painted straight. And I'm actually going to tie this in my number one because it's the same film. Raiders of the Lost Ark, both the A poster and the B poster. Now, the B poster is the one that I have because it's the one that ended up becoming the image art on the cover of the VHS when VHS was finally released of that movie. It was also the poster that they released when they re-released Raiders of the Lost Ark in theaters in 1982. But and that's the one where Indiana Jones is cracking the whip, and all around the edge of the poster, everyone's faces. You see Marion, and you see Belloc's face about to melt, and you see evil Nazi, and you see all the main characters in the movie just decorating the side of that. The sides of that poster with Indiana Jones prominently in the middle cracking his whip. That one I think is brilliant because it is just so... there's so much action in there. It feels like you're hearkening back to, the 1920s and 30s serials where you might see a poster like that. The A poster, though, a lot of people like a lot more. And this is one where you just kind of have Indiana Jones looking at you. It's a very, he's just kind of like a 3/4 pose looking at you, and the whip is over his arm. I don't know if this is the one where you see him. I think in the background of that poster, you see him descending into the Well of the Souls on a rope. And the tagline on the tagline on this is adventure like you remember it, or something like that is the tagline on the A poster. I like the B poster more, but both of them are fantastic. So they're going to tie. I wish I had an A poster. Those ones are a little bit harder to come by, but definitely Raiders of the Lost Ark posters A and B are fantastic posters by Richard Amsel. Go check those out. And he has done a number of other Steven Spielberg and George Lucas movies over the years. I think he did. He did Beyond Thunderdome, which is gorgeous. Yeah. Go check out all of Richard Amsel's work. It is magnificent, and that is why he gets my number one spot on my top 5 movie poster list. Rodrigo, what do you have for number 1?
My number 1 is a rarity in this list, in that it's a good poster for a movie that I actually enjoyed. And also a poster that gives us a lot of information and has a major event from the movie without necessarily being a huge spoiler, because this is really something that happens pretty early on, and it was in all the trailers. And that's the kind of the main poster for Cloverfield, which is the New York skyline with the Statue of Liberty in the foreground, and the bay, or whatever I don't know what's the immediate area, the coast, the water,
the Hudson River,
and the Statue of Liberty's head is missing. There is a clear trail that something has followed, and then like a big chunk missing out of the city where, a monster got out and is now pursuing somebody who is like very good at shooting handheld. So there's a lot to like in this poster. It's kind of it's scary, but it's very still. It would be crazy to say that there wasn't some like leftover anxiety about tragedies in New York City, and this poster's kind of rolling with that.
Oh yeah.
Without it being necessarily too overt about it, but it's there for you to find. So yeah, I remember seeing that poster and being like, I've never been into giant monster movies, which is interesting, because they tend to be too people-y.
Yeah.
Not enough monsters eating.
Yeah, and it's like we keep cutting back to people, and I'm like, I don't care. It's like even that Godzilla movie was about Heisenberg reconnecting with Kick-Ass, and I'm like, come on, guys, can I just see the monster?
I hear that's the problem with the most recent Godzilla movie too. Too much people, not enough monsters fighting. I think you're always going to have that tension in a monster movie, right? It's like, if you don't have humans, how do you connect to what's happening? Like, you see it in the Transformers movies, you saw it in the original, or not the original, but the 99 Godzilla with Matthew Broderick.
You know, it's like if it's a movie about a giant monster, robot, whatever, you're gonna have people there, and then like kind of the craft of it is, do the people relate to the monster? Is it actually just two different stories? And Cloverfield does a really good job, I feel. A lot of people don't like Cloverfield, but I like it a lot because it's all people, right?
Right.
The monster is just a natural disaster for all intents and purposes. It's just a natural disaster that is completely unpredictable.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a flood, a tornado, an earthquake. You kind of know what's going to happen. A giant monster that can move in any direction at once, not so much. So we only follow people throughout this thing, and the monster just kind of shows up and he's like, "Hi, how are you?" Everyone's yeah, pretty much. So that's actually one of the reasons why I really like Cloverfield, is because it takes a hard stand on where it wants to stand. And I'm not saying that all monster movies should do that, but it's nice for somebody to be like, we are going to go hard to the right on this portrayal of a Godzilla style monster.
They committed to a ground level view of a giant monster attack.
Yep.
And it works.
Yep.
Even though I think it's a little on the nose that the main character with the camera is named HUD.
Oh, I mean,
come on.
It's not, you know, it's really not the best movie ever made. This is like,
I watch it every time it comes up.
This is early. I mean, it's like obviously post Blair Witch, but it's like, you know, point of view, handheld-ish camera. You know, it has plenty of cheats in it.
Oh yeah.
But definitely not as many cheats as Chronicle. Like, again, a very well put together thing in that they're like, this movie takes place over the course of like 4 hours, you know? So it's like, it makes sense. It makes sense that you can actually just shoot all of this, you know, if you suspend disbelief a little bit. Mm-hmm. I like Cloverfield. I like this poster.
All right, there you go. Rodrigo's number one. Matthew, what is your number one?
My number one is number one for a very important reason.
When it comes to a really good movie poster, and, you know, in a lot of cases, any really good bit of art, you have to ask yourself, how influential is it? What does it inspire? What other art comes out of it? And this particular poster is iconic in a way that most movie posters aren't, to the point where recently they released a shot from behind the scenes of the new Wonder Woman movie. And since this is set in the 80s, all the characters are in the positions from the poster for my number one, The Breakfast Club. And just from them sitting in those positions, you know what they're referencing. You know it's an intentional 80s riff. And the original poster of The Breakfast Club is the 5 kids just kind of sitting, you know, and then of course you have Molly Ringwald lying across the front of the foreground, and Judd Nelson in the background just kind of smoldering. It's a really well designed use of the space. It uses about half of the movie poster, and then there's a lot of big text at the bottom and a lot of stuff at the top. But you have to look at it as, what do you know about them from looking at this poster? You can tell who these characters are from looking at the poster. You can see, you know, Emilio Estevez is wearing his jacket. He's clearly the jock. And you can see down at the bottom, Molly Ringwald, you know, wearing her extremely expensive skirt and her watch, and she's clearly above it all. You can tell a little bit about these characters, even if you've never seen the film, just from this poster. And references to it turn up everywhere. I really enjoy one I found that had the X-Men with Phoenix down at the bottom, and then Cyclops is Emilio Estevez, and Gambit is Judd Nelson. And Gambit, by the way, is a perfect Judd Nelson. He's just like that dirt bag avatar. He's the archetype. You're just like, it's dirt. It's if you're going to be a dirt bag, you're going to either idolize Judd Nelson, Gambit, or Han Solo. That's what you're going to do. That's how you get through life. And this poster is literally everywhere, and it's so simple, and it's such a you know, Stephen talked about how your group shots usually aren't actually group shots; they're photoshopped. This feels like, and I can't say for sure because it may.
No, I think this one was probably all shot. This was probably one of those like studio jobs.
Yeah, or you know, they had body doubles and they just cut and paste the heads because it was 1983. and we didn't have Photoshop yet. But I don't care. My number one poster, and if I had a room full of posters, this would be on the wall. This would be one of the movie posters that you'd be like, yeah, go ahead and stare at me all you want, Molly Ringwald. I don't need your approval, Mr. Vernon. So yeah, it's a movie that I really actually enjoy and I watch a lot. And I'll even watch the Victorious episode that's a knockoff of it, and I'll laugh. But I have to ask, we found out that each of us is a brain and an athlete and a basket case and Rodrigo. And I think that answers your question.
All right, listeners, hopefully that answers your question. What are our top 5 movie posters? We certainly enjoyed sharing them with you, and hopefully you have some ideas as well. Head over to majorspoilers.com in the comments section for that episode. Share your top 5 movie posters. Maybe you don't have any. Maybe you do. Maybe you're someone who likes the new Mondo posters. They're not really official movie posters, but Mondo goes in and does some really cool designs that could be a movie poster. I mean, those Star Wars ones they did a few years ago, still, just so brilliant and so wonderful. I love those a lot. But
I definitely found a lot of fan posters while looking stuff up, and it was confusing.
Oh, yeah.
But good.
Also, we have a Discord. You can find a link in the show notes of this episode, and you can go over into the top 5 channel of the Discord, the Major Spoilers Discord, and you can talk with other fans of top 5, share some top 5 suggestions there. Maybe we'll pick one from that list. Head over, check out the Discord. And if you are a patron at patreon.com/Major Spoilers, you get access to secret channels that no one else has access to. So what are you waiting for? Go check out our Discord channel. Also, go over and sign up at patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Matthew Rodrigo, thank you for being here once again. And listeners, we will be back next time to share more top 5s because everybody loves a list.
This podcast is copyright 2019 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.